Coming up next on the Wet Fly Swing podcast.
I caught this tailing common one time. It was tailing behind a toilet. It was awesome. A lot of electric scooters and stuff in the water. Sometimes, if the water's flowing pretty good, they'll get behind things just to make it easier on themselves. But sometimes in some of these canal sections, there's not much flow at all. So it's almost like still water, and it's just kind of random. They'll just be there. And most of those fish are dry fly fish.
That was Kris Bare taking us into the habitat of the urban jungle. Tailing carp, swinging flies, and community. Today on The Swing.
Welcome to the Wet Fly Swing Fly Fishing Show, where you discover tips, tricks, and tools from the leading names in fly fishing today.
It's time to check out Travel Time before we get started. wetflyswing.com/travel time. A quick chance to win a fly rod from Rare Gear and a potential guided trip near your hometown. That's wetflyswing.com/travel time. Check it out right now. Today's episode is sponsored by Togens Fly Shop, providing superior quality products at an affordable price. A great resource for fly tying materials, tools, and accessories. Togens has been over-delivering since 2005 on price, service, and passion. And now you can check out what Togens has going on this year. Head over to wetflyswing.com/Togens right now. Togens. Togens online. We're also sponsored by Angler's Coffee, roasting a full range of coffee with one goal in mind, delivering excellent coffee to every single angler. A blend for every taste, a dry dropper on the go teabag option, roast sampler. Joe's got it all going. You can go to wetflyswing.com/anglers right now. That's ANGLERS. You support a sustainable company with unsurpassed taste and this podcast in one shot. Kris Bare takes us into Arizona to discover how he catches massive carp in the city and beyond. We find out which line and rod is the best for what he's doing up there, who some of the local guides are in the area, and what events they have coming up this year around carp and some other cool stuff they have going at the fly shop. I'm not going to lie to you. This might be my favorite episode of all time. So without further ado, here we go. Kris Bare from azflyshop.com. How's it going, Kris?
Pretty good.
Yeah, thanks for taking a little time today. We have a hot topic that we're going to dig into. It's I don't know if you feel like carp fishing is a hot topic, but I feel like there's a lot of people interested in it out there. But we're going to talk about kind of maybe an A to Z to carp fishing today, and we're going to talk about how the fly shop you work with, and all that. But before we get there, take us really quickly back into how you got into fly fishing. Then we'll take it into the fly shop.
So yeah, I grew up on the East Coast. I'm from Maryland originally. I grew up on the Susquehanna River, and I did a lot of conventional gear fishing growing up. I did a lot of striper fishing and things like that. And when I was about 13 years old or so, I found this old fly rod in my grandfather's shed, and it was I forget what it was, but it was a fiberglass 10 weight, and it weighed like 11 pounds or something. And I took it out, and I had I put a spoon on it, and I threw it out there, and just kind of lobbed it. I had no idea what I was doing, and I hooked this little tiny like 14-inch schoolie striper on it.
Oh, wow.
And I was done after that. I started bass fishing with a fly rod like pretty soon after that, and pretty constantly, and it was kind of just over for me.
Right. So you put a spoon like an actual lure. You put lure on the fly rod, cast it out there, and got a striper.
Yeah, absolutely. It was not really a cast either. It was a
flick.
More of a lob.
Yeah, lob. It's good. And then so you got into bass fishing. When did you so in the whole process, when did the move out west take place?
I was 21 when I moved out here. When I first moved out here, 22. I was 22. And I needed a change in life. I was done with the snow and just kind of living in a small town. So I packed up everything, and I moved out here to Phoenix, and I was out here for a little while. I kind of had, I started doing other things other than fly fishing, and fly fishing kind of took a back seat for about a year or so, and then it crept back into my life. It kind of just ran back into my life, and I started kind of exploring a lot of the urban stuff here in Phoenix, and it was a lot of fun.
So why Arizona? Out of all the western states, why was it Arizona?
Honestly, it doesn't snow here. It doesn't snow in Phoenix. So
yeah, you picked the hottest. You literally picked one of the hottest places in the country, probably, right, to go.
Yeah. When I made my decision, it was January, and it was like -9, and there was 2 feet of snow on the ground, and I think it was like 71 here at that point, and I was like, okay, that's where I'm going.
And now you've been there for a few years, and so talk about that. So you're there 22, and then when does the AZ Fly Shop? When do you connect with them?
So we've only been open for about a year and a half now.
Oh wow!
Yeah. So about a year and a half ago, this guy, his name's Chris Rich. He started posting these social media posts in all of the local fly fishing blogs and the Facebook groups and things like that. And he said he was opening a fly shop. He wanted to open a fly shop. He's a native here from Phoenix, which is kind of rare actually. And he wanted Phoenix to have a good fly shop. So I came down here, and I was kind of semi-retired at the time, and I was just fishing a lot, and I came down here and I talked to him, and I kind of I helped out for a little bit, and he was like, I kind of want you to manage the shop. So
wow.
Yeah.
What did that feel like was that kind of out of the blue, or did you kind of expect that coming?
I kind of expected it. I fell in love with the community and being here really quickly, just kind of being around everybody, all the local fly fishermen. And it was pretty apparent. So it was just a really good fit. There was kind of some hesitance at first because I was fishing every day. So I was like, yeah. I'm giving up that, but
that's right. That's right. You're in the shop. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but I do love it. I love hanging out with everybody, and I get to talk about fishing every day. So that's fun.
Yeah. When people come in the shop, what percentage do you think of the person coming in there are thinking carp fishing?
Out here, it's pretty popular.
Yeah.
Our local guys, they're like the year-round people. People do it pretty regularly, or they have, they're just figuring out about it. They're driving down the street and they see somebody fly fishing a canal, and then they stop in there like, hey, this guy was fly fishing the canal. What was he doing?
All right.
And things like that. So it's probably half and half. Half the people that are here in Phoenix aren't here year round though. So.
Oh, no kidding. There you go. Yeah. So people are there, right? Yeah, that's right. People come wintertime, people have their second homes or whatever, to come there to, gotcha. Yep. Nice. Well, so that's a good little intro. I wanted to dig in. I mean, carp is the topic of the day here. I think that it would be awesome to dig into what you do out there with your urban carp fishing and some of the canals. So let's start there. Where would you like to start? I'm curious on your perspective when you think, if you were going to do an A to Z carp fishing, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? You got somebody come in the shop, they know nothing about urban or know nothing about carp fishing.
Yeah.
How do you start them off?
So I first talked to them about the where they kind of want to carp fish. We have a couple different carp fisheries here in Arizona. You have your kind of outside the city river carp, and they're ridiculous. Then you have your big lake carp, like Lake Pleasant and Bartlett and things, and they act a little bit different than your canal carp or your urban pond carp. So I kind of go over kind of where they were thinking about fishing at, and because everybody has the internet, so if somebody's interested in carp fishing, they Google it before they come talk to me.
Yeah, that's right.
So they have kind of an idea. Everybody does when they walk in. And and then we kind of talk about the species. We've got grass carp and common carp and all the common carp morphs that are out here, mirrors and koi and all that good stuff. But grass carp and common carp eat completely differently. Sometimes they'll eat the same things. A lot of times they're eating in different water columns and different times of day and things like that. So,
Wow. Well, let's. I think it'd be interesting to talk about the, kind of the canals and the canal carp, right? I think just touching on that, and we can talk about species. So in those, in the kind of the urban stuff, is it so you have both species there? Talk about that a little bit. What is the just the differences between the feeding behaviors of those two? And actually before you get there, just give us a brief. I'm not sure if you know it, but I'm curious on the history of carp in these canals. How does that happen, and have they been there forever?
So common carp have been everywhere as long as common carp have been places. They're everywhere. Brought over by Europeans, and it was just
wherever there's water, there you could find carp. Absolutely.
Our grass carp, our white amur is what the SRP calls them. They've been out here since SRP put them in the canals.
And SRP stands for?
Salt River Project. It's our power company, one of our power and water companies. And they use them as kind of a pool cleaner for the canals.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they're sterile. I have some friends that are biologists that have other opinions on that. But they're supposed to be sterile, so they can manage them really well and everything. And they just dump them in there and have them clean the vegetation.
Wow. So they dump in the grass. So what between the grass carp and common carp, which one is the one that's the one you would rather catch?
I'm a common carp guy.
Yeah.
They're my kind of fish. I think they're a little more finicky and which is weird because everywhere else in the world, grass carp are more finicky, but our common carp they're a little more picky, but they're the ones that will just absolutely, they'll send your backing not flying out through the guides and things like that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, they get down. They're awesome.
Yeah, they're good. And give us a range of size. Like what's an average carp you're catching out there?
Average, we're in, probably the 7 to 9 range. 7 to 9 pounds is kind of average.
7 to 9 pounds. So, and then what's your trophy?
Mine, I caught one that was probably pushing 40 the other day.
Wow.
The biggest grass carp.
40 pounds. 40 pounds. So in these canals, there's some current out there. What's that look like when you get a 40 pounder on?
It's a lot like fighting a saltwater fish. They give you a couple big runs, and then you're picking up a bunch of line, and then they see you or the net, and then they give you another giant run. The commons they pull a lot harder. I've fought commons before for 30, 40 minutes. Grassies, they kind of tend to fight a lot like a wet mattress sometimes.
Yep. Right, like you snagged them or something.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Wow, this is cool. So common carp are the ones that you're kind of targeting. They're the better fighters. They can get huge. Well, let's just go into the gear, start there, because that's a good place, to kind of tell us how, again, you're getting some big fish. What does that look like? So rod and line, talk about that, and then we'll talk about leader and some flies real quick.
Yeah, absolutely. I personally throw 6 weights. It hits the water a lot lighter than your 7s and 8s, and I get more eats because of it. I spook less fish. Even with a 14-foot leader, those fish are incredibly spooky. But I use saltwater style 6 weights, and I say that in quotations. There's a couple of them I really like. The Scott Sector is like it's my baby. Mm-hmm. But for line, Right now, I'm fishing a scientific angler bonefish line, the smooth one, Amplitude Smooth, and it's a little heavy for me. It hits the water a little heavy. You're not turning over big flies, so
All right.
you gotta be able to throw accurate and sometimes throw a long way. But the problem with carp fishing is they don't make a line for it.
No.
So we destroy a lot of lines because the sides of the canals are
All right.
stucco, and you're dragging these long shots. You're throwing a lot of times,
This is perfect. This is perfect, Kris, because we're working with scientific anglers on another little event we're doing. So I'll definitely I'll hit them up and see what their plan is for the carp line. But if you had to describe to the crew at Scientific Anglers, how would you change that line you're using now to make it like, what would the perfect carp line be?
It would be somewhere between the trout line and the infinity line. It would have a tropical coating, so it's a hard coating because it's 112 degrees out here, and
bulletproof.
Yeah, absolutely. Just I don't care. Just make it as hard of a coating as you can make it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of the subtle sort of thing, right? You still have to have it to land nice. That's the challenge.
Yeah, and it has to be able to load a fast 6-weight too.
Yeah. Well, I don't know anything about. I'm terrible. I'm not a line guru, but I would think that the way they would build it is you'd have a weight forward, like a weight, but then on the very end, maybe whatever it is, 10 feet of it, you'd have a really nice thin transition to a thin line that would just feather out there, right?
Yep. But make it tropical coating.
But make it tropical and then make it really durable too. Like I don't know how they would do that, but good. So we got a call to action for us for SA on this one. But so you got the line. So you basically, but you could go out there with you're not like necessarily having to sink this thing down. Sort of like talk about that. What's it look like the presentation for the fly?
Well, there's it depends on what I'm throwing at. There's when you're throwing at the commons, it's a lot like throwing at like redfish or bonefish or permit. It's a lot of like dragging and dropping and then making the fly kind of get away from them a little bit, and they'll kind of pounce on it. Sometimes it's kind of drift it directly into their nose and kind of don't give them kind of force feed them a little bit.
Yeah.
But Grassies, a lot of times we're throwing dry flies for them. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's like upstream mending and trying to get a drag-free drift and things like that, and having them come up eat dry flies. We also swing to Grassies like they're steelhead.
No kidding.
Yeah, there's a guide out here, low water guide. Got to give him a shout out. He's awesome. He's kind of playing with this whole swinging at Grassies thing, and it's super exciting, and they smash it, and you're throwing like full on intruder style spun deer hair head swing fly.
Wow.
It's a lot of fun.
God, that's great. So who is this again?
His name's Low Water Guide. It's a guy named Derek Rivchin. He's
okay.
He's awesome.
Yeah, low water guy. That's perfect. So yeah, we got a couple. Actually, it sounds like common carp you like fishing, but also the grass, the kind of those are a little bit are fun too. You got some cool techniques there for those.
Yeah. They're a ton of fun, and you go 3 days without hooking a common, and it's fun to hook 7 or 8 Grassies. They get 30, 40 pounds too. So
yeah,
they're no slouches.
Okay, this is cool. Well, we're going to try to do our best today at the time we have to talk, just maybe a little more generally. Maybe that might be hard to do, but if somebody comes in, we're talking urban carp. We've dug into a little bit, and it sounds like the feeding behaviors. Maybe clarify that again. So the difference between the common carp and the grass carp, the feeding behaviors. What should somebody be bringing in their fly box if they're going out today? And so they have a chance to hit both. Could you hit both on the same day?
Oh, absolutely. You just got to change flies.
Okay.
Yeah. And sometimes they'll eat the same thing. I've caught commons on grassy flies. I've caught Grassies on common flies. It happens. But yeah, the commons, they tend to tail a little bit more, kind of like a redfish does. And so things with heavy dumbbell eyes. I use a lot of tungsten eyes and stuff, and get it on the bottom. Stuff that stands straight up, like hybrid, like headstand patterns and things like that, like worms that stand straight off the bottom. A lot of dragonfly nymphs and damselfly nymphs that stand straight up. I like a lot of stuff like that.
Oh, nice.
And then Grassies, they tend to eat a little more mid-column or off the surface. They eat off the surface a lot. And they tend to be a little more, they tend to eat plants more, things that blow into the canal off the trees. And I think they tend to be a little more color-oriented. So we tie things that kind of look like flowers. I tie a bougainvillea flower that's absolutely disgusting. And things like that. A lot of like chartreuses and bright yellows, stuff that they can see that sticks out. And then there's the classic bread fly and things like that. They all work.
Yeah, they all work.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, so if we're coming up, and do you guys do like out of the shop, or is Carp at a level of like guiding? I mean, are you guys doing that out of the shop, or what's that look like?
None of us. There's 3 guys that work on the floor in the shop. I'm one of them, and we don't have time to guide. We're busier than we ever thought we would be. So it's awesome. The community here is absolutely awesome, but we partnered with all the local guides. We're the only fly shop in Phoenix.
Oh, wow.
The only standalone fly shop in Phoenix. And so it was easy to work with all the guides, and we're friends with them too. We fish with them.
So they're guiding for carp out there?
Yep, absolutely. There's a couple guys that do it, and man, they have it dialed. People come in the shop and think I'm good at it, and these guys are serious.
Nice. Who would be, you want to give a shout out to somebody just in case somebody wants to find a guide?
Yeah, Derek over at
Derek.
Low-Water.
Yeah,
he's awesome. He is the carp guide. So
gotcha. Perfect. All right, so we got that. So let's finish up the kind of the terminal tackle here, just so we can get people ready. So you got the rod. You're talking 6 weight, and you like that, Scott. We'll put a link in the show notes to that one you mentioned earlier. What is the leader? So 14 foot. So you're going fairly long leaders. How does that look?
Yeah, I use 12 and 14 foot 3X a lot. If I'm getting into fish and I'm getting broken off, if I'm getting into big fish, I'll go up a little bit. If I'm at some of our smaller like urban ponds and stuff that tend to have a little bit smaller fish, I'll go down to 4X sometimes. Mm-hmm. Usually with commons, I'm throwing fluorocarbon just because of abrasive resistance. The canals are terrible on line and leader, so.
Yep. Right. So you're going big. So you're doing, and what are you just grabbing a built leader out of the tapered deal out of the box and just throwing it on there?
Yeah. Trout Hunter makes a great one. Umpqua actually makes a pretty good 10 foot. I just add a little tippet to it. Yeah. Their 8-pound 10 foot is,
perfect.
A pretty good leader. Absolutely.
Awesome. Where do you guys in the shop? Always curious about this on flies, because I haven't done this for a while. But do the flies come from all over the place? Do you guys tie them yourself, or where are you getting your flies?
Nah, they're all from either Umpqua or Solitude or Fulling Mill. We've got some Rio flies. Yeah, I made it a point a long time ago when Kris asked me to tie a fly for the shop. I was like, no, I do not tie commercially. Won't do it. I love fly tying. So
yeah, I know. I hear you, man. I did as a younger person. I did a lot of tying for the shop, and yeah, it's an easy way to get burnt out for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Today's episode is sponsored by FishHound Expeditions, putting together remote Alaskan wilderness float trips for that trip of a lifetime. And we just got off of one of these trips. I was out there with Nick and the crew, Adam and his team. It was amazing. We were out, we got helicoptered in, dropped into a gravel bar, and had 4 days on the river of great camping, great fires, great chat. One of the nights we caught 2 huge rainbows within 5 feet of pretty much where we had our campfire on the banks of the gravel bar. I can't say enough about this trip. The area, this is right near Denali National Park. We had Northern Lights one night, which was amazing. If you haven't checked out the Alaska experience and want to get a chance at a rainbow of a lifetime, some salmon, you got to check out Adam and the crew. It was pretty fun hanging out with these boys. So right now you can head over to wetflyswing.com/fishhound. That's FISHHOUND to get that trip of a lifetime. You support this podcast by clicking through that link to check out Adam and connect with FishHound. Okay, back to the show.
Okay, well, we got the gear, so we got that taken care of. So let's take it to the water. Talk about, kind of we're heading out there to this urban. What is this urban fishery? Take us there, paint that picture of what that looks like.
Okay. It can be really nice and it can be really not. I prefer some of the spots that are really not nice. It's a big city, so we do have a pretty large homeless population, and they also recreate on the canals and live there.
Oh, wow. And they're catching fish?
Sometimes. I get asked all the time if I'm going to eat that every time I catch a carp.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Now what do you tell them? Because is it a problem if you're killing carp?
Yes, they are sterile and SRP owns them. So
oh, wow.
It is catch and release, and it's a law. It's an actual law. You can keep common carp if you want. I use the excuse every time. Oh yeah, the SRP owns them. You have to release them.
Yeah.
That's what I just say.
Right. Is there any conservation type of issues there where you really need more fish, or I might have no idea, right? What does that look like on carp?
Absolutely not. There's plenty of them.
Yeah, there's lots of carp.
Yeah, they're doing well. And SRP feels like they need more fish than we do. They just put another 30,000 fish in there this year or something, 30 or 40,000 fish. So
yeah, this is interesting. This is definitely a different fishery. So so you have these fish out there, and so take us to the water. What are we looking like? How are you setting up to find carp and target them?
The biggest thing is just finding somewhere to park. You find a place to park, and you just carp fishing is moving. Every time I carp fish, I walk about 7 miles.
Wow.
You're constantly, the more water you can cover, the more successful you'll be. You don't get a lot of shots at these fish, and if they refuse a fly once, they're going to refuse it all day long. So finding new fish is important, and finding fish that are feeding. So yeah, you find a spot to park and you just walk and look for fish.
Right. So you're walking and looking, and what you're just looking for fish. So once you find a fish, what's the next step?
Well, I throw at everything. Personally, if I think it may have thought about feeding in the last hour, I'll throw at it. At least for a cast or two, and usually that's all you get. So it's worth it just to kind of try to get a fly in front of them. And then you're 99 times out of 100, you're going to blow that fish out, or it's just going to refuse a fly. And then you go throw out a bunch of them until you find one that doesn't.
There you go. So it's a numbers game.
Yeah, absolutely a numbers game.
What is the timing if you just look throughout the year? Is there any time better or worse to be looking for carp?
When it's 112 degrees. So
that's better.
July 7th at noon. It's the worst day of the year. They like it hot.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll come up in the column and bask in the sun and things like that. They like the weather hot. They like the water hot. But I had some of my best carp fishing this year in the spring when they were actually running water, because there was a bunch of food in the water. So they were just very willing to eat, and people kind of slow down on them over the winter. They do slow down in the winter a little bit when it gets cooler.
Yeah.
Like in the middle of January, but you can still catch them.
You can. So pretty much year round. And what is the winter? What's the cold time there in Phoenix?
January, but it's 70.
It's still 70. So 70 is a cold.
Yeah.
And you love that? Is that just, the 112? Or are you just loving the hot weather?
I do. I complain about it sometimes. I'm like, man, this is hot, but it's I like can go outside and actually physically do things, and there's not 2.5 feet of snow on the ground and everything's frozen. So
Yeah.
it's not bad.
No. So today we're kind of in mid-September. What's it looking like? What's the high today?
Highs, I think mid 90s. Yeah, it was. It didn't break 100 yesterday for the first time in like 18 days or something like that. But it's not. It wasn't bad yesterday. It's been a really wet summer here. We've actually had a lot of rain, so it's been different. Water's been high and muddy.
Oh, it has. Yeah. Does that affect when you get color in the water? How does that affect the carp fishing?
You can't see them.
Yeah, that's it.
And it's all sight fishing. That's kind of where the swinging thing kind of came in. Just kind of being able to see shadows and swinging it over top of shadows, and they'll come up and kind of whack it if it's big enough and loud enough.
No kidding. So you got these. Let's talk about the techniques there. You mentioned. We're talking about targeting, hitting. Like you said, you might throw a little nymph or something like that to some of these fish. Then you also might have the dry fly, and then you've also got these big flies. Is that for swinging? Have you done a little bit of that, or is that just something?
Yeah. It's if I'm fishing Grassies, if I'm going to fish grass carp now, I'm going to swing to them because it's just they like. I grew up on the East Coast, and we didn't have steelhead or anything like that. I actually didn't trout fish much at all growing up. I might have trout fished like 3 times in my life. So I didn't. Swinging was just kind of it's a foreign concept to me, and a fish hitting a swung fly is a ton of fun.
Yeah, it is.
I love it.
It is. So let's describe this, because we got a bunch of, obviously we've talked a lot about swinging flies here on this show, but what does that look like? So you're swinging it down. Are these fish are they either hammering it or they're not? Or are they kind of like playing with it at all?
They'll come up and kind of grass carp they're kind of curious and frustrating. Like they'll put their nose on a dry fly and never open their mouth and things like that, like push it across the top of the water. And so they'll get up behind, they'll bolt off and chase it down this swung fly and get right up on it and then refuse it.
Wow.
Yeah, but it's fun to see them like move really fast, and I mean they're these big fish. They're 15 pounds and scooting across the canal. It's a lot of fun.
Wow. So describe that. Let's dig into a little more on the swinging, just so we get that. So you're using a different setup for your line, or just bigger flies, heavier flies? I'm
just using a little bit bigger flies, stuff that moves. I've been tying them intruder style because this grass carp will come and just grab the tail. So we're moving hooks back, and I throw legs on them, and spun deer hair head. I think it pushes a little bit of water and just kind of gets their attention from a little bit further away.
Yep. Yep. So like a muddler would probably be a good pattern to use out there.
Yeah, something with a little flowier tail. I use a lot of bucktail and craft fur, bucktail underneath craft fur, to just kind of give it like a little bit of a flutter behind that deer hair, and it seems to work really well. But I've also swung. I use a lot of this stuff. It's F&F Chewing Gum worm, and it's a material out of the UK somewhere. They're Stillwater guys. And that's swinging that stuff it works too. Yeah.
Now, what is this stuff? This F&F?
Yeah, it's called chewing gum worm. It's like I don't even know how to describe it. It's like a chenille. It's like a weird, like rubbery, like chenille that kind of wants to float, but it kind of just wiggles, and it's awesome stuff.
Oh wow.
Stuff.
Yeah, it sounds like almost like the rubber worm, like you'd tie in like a lure, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It is absolutely.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Kind of cheating.
Gotcha. So you're swinging out. So you're tying some of these things. You want to move some water, get some interest. And when these on the swing, when the carp come up, they still do the same thing. They might come up and look at it, play with it. Are you having a situation where you're trying to really slow down your swing and having that sort of thing? And how are you getting this thing to the right depth and right so the fish take? Like, describe the take.
Yeah, they so some of them will just come up and wallop it no matter what. Some of them you have to kind of like kind of throw a quick mend and feed it to them. Some of them you have to like kind of swing it underneath of them and pick it up, like make it start its swing like right at them to get them to eat it. They're just they're all kind of different. So yeah, swinging to the same fish a few times, and then finally getting it to eat is not uncommon.
Okay, so you could do it. So that's the difference, is that if you're swinging, you're going to stick on that fish and give it a few shots.
Yeah, until it just has enough of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll spook. They'll let you know.
Yep. And what are they doing when they're in it? When these carp, they're sitting down, they're obviously eating whatever vegetation, but are they kind of holding, and do they have their little spot? I mean, we're talking a canal, so there's not like there's a lot of rocks and substrate right under there.
Oh, you'd be surprised.
Yeah, like shopping carts and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's all cover. I caught this tailing common one time. It was tailing behind a toilet. It was awesome. Yeah, they're
That's sweet.
A lot of electric scooters and stuff in the water.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it depends on the water flow. Sometimes if the water's flowing pretty good, they'll get behind things just to make it easier on themselves. But a lot of times we don't. Sometimes in some of these canal sections, there's not much flow at all. So it's almost like still water, and it's just kind of random. They'll just be there.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And most of those fish are dry fly fish.
Yeah, a dry fly fish. Okay, so if it's slow, like lake reservoir type thing, then you can get some of those grassies on dries.
Yeah, there's sections of the canal where it gets deep and slow, and those fish are your dry fly fish.
Perfect. And this water, I'm just kind of curious about this. This water these are the canals with the energy company. Where's this water coming from?
It's actually coming off of Mount Baldy all the way out in the White Mountains. It's about 4 hours east of us, where the Apache reservation and stuff is, which is where our best trout fishing in the state is. And we do actually have pretty good trout fishing here in Arizona that people don't really know about. Got a couple species that you can't find anywhere else.
What do you guys have? What are the trout species there?
We have 8 salmonids altogether. We've got Arctic grayling and 7 trout. Or we've got brookies, browns, rainbows, tigers. Apache trout is our state fish. And then we've got Gilas and Bonneville cuts.
Oh, and Bonneville. Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
I don't think I missed any.
No, that's good. Yeah, that's the amazing thing about I think just like today we're talking about carp at all around the country, you could probably go to any state and kind of look at the same thing, right? Have a good diverse selection, of trout or of different species. So, well, let's keep on the carp a little more here. I just want to make sure we cover it so we were talking, the canal sounds like it's pretty straightforward. You get out there, you hike until you find fish, or you walk until you find fish, and when you do, you just present your fly. What's the presentation? You got to be how do you do a subtle presentation so you don't spook the fish?
I personally I like dragging it into them rather than casting it at them. And there's the other thing too. Sometimes they like the splash.
Right.
Yeah, if there's like mesquite pods falling off the trees or something like that, sometimes throwing it like dead at them, like throwing a missile at them, is the best way to go. They're weird fish, and you never know what you're getting into, and that's kind of why I love them. Yeah.
Hey, gotcha. Okay, so keep a open mind here. It's not like what we're talking about is not one size fits all. All sorts of things could work for these fish.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, good. So, before we kind of move off of the urban, anything else you want to throw out there that would help somebody? Let's just say they're picking this up right now, and they're out there in Phoenix, and they want to go out and do it. What else would you tell somebody before they head out on the water?
Practice casting.
Oh yeah.
Be accurate. That's it. That's just kind of what you have to do.
Yeah.
Be accurate with your first shot, and you'll be successful.
Yep. What's your best tip on getting accurate with casting? How would somebody do that?
I personally, for me, I'm only accurate when I'm throwing at fish. I can't go throw at a hula hoop in the yard. I just can't do it. But if there's a tailing carp out there, it's getting hit. that's what's
it forces you. So basically get on the water. Don't waste time. Yeah, just get on. Just fish.
Yeah, just get out there and fish.
Yeah. How did you're casting, I go back now, right? 13-year-old, and you got into fly fishing there. Did you teach yourself the whole time, or have you ever kind of taken a lesson, or what's that look like?
I was self-taught, like almost completely, with the odd like fishing with some, like running into somebody else fly fishing type deal, until the shop opened. And I've gotten better at casting in the past year and a half than I have in the first 16 that I was casting.
Exactly. So, yeah. That's it. So you would recommend probably getting a lesson, right?
Oh, absolutely. And it just makes your life better. Like you have more fun fly fishing.
Yeah. That's that is a good take home. It's always the take home, right? The guiding. And we're going up, we're heading up to Alaska on a cool trip here this week. And,
nice.
Same thing. It's like, you mentioned it kind of when you mentioned splashing it, we're going to be mousing for rainbows, right? And
nice.
I've this is like my first time doing it. So it's pretty awesome to think like, okay, boom. But, But it's kind of like a guided thing, right? So it's going to help. And not that you have to do that, but again, if you want to get better at something, probably a casting lesson is definitely a good place to start.
A casting lesson and a guide trip will knock years off of your learning curve.
Yeah.
It just will.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, what about these other places? So we mentioned, we got the urban fishing. We touched on that. You said there's these couple other areas. You've got like the lakes and the rivers. Does that look totally different as far as how you're fishing for the fish and finding them?
Yeah, it does. So the river, the Salt River, it comes kind of down past Mount Baldy and things and kind of dumps into the city. So it's our first, it's a tailwater, and it's right outside of the city. It's, I think it's like 40 minutes outside of the city. And there's carp in there. They get a little more picky, and they're bigger and stronger. They're just big. Everything in the lakes outside of the city is just a lot stronger. We throw 8 weights at them and things like that. And they have places to go. And then they use the same kind of basic flies, but it's just a little tougher. And then the big lakes got Buddy with a flats boat, and he pulls around and you throw at them like they're bonefish or redfish.
Oh, nice. So that's the lake. Yeah, and we talked about that just before getting started here, that we had an episode a while back, and I kind of looked it up. It was Kevin Morlock, Beaver Island, the weight 102, right? We're a long time ago, so that's cool. I'll put a link into that episode 102. Kevin Morlock talked about that. But so describe that. It's a similar deal, right? You're out on a lake with a boat. Compare that to describe what you guys are doing there.
It's you're just kind of you're poling around looking for tailing fish. It's kind of like flats fishing. It's kind of that same kind of deal, and a lot of our lakes out here are crystal clear. So you can see them from a long way away and things like that. It's cool. You get to make a lot of long shots at them. I really like it.
And is that a little bit? Obviously, you have to have a boat, so that takes a little bit more of another piece of equipment there.
Yeah.
And then you have the rivers. So it sounds like you like all three. Is there one that like if you had to choose any day, what are you going for?
The urban stuff holds a real special place for me. It's close. It's accessible to everybody, you know. Like I have access to a lot of this stuff. Some of my friends don't, you know, so it's cool to be able to get out and catch these big fish right here, and they're 10 minutes from our house, and then you stop and get happy hour, and it's a whole thing. Like it's great. Yeah.
Right. That is awesome. So, and do you think urban, I mean, you know, carp fishing around the country, there's probably, I mean, I'm not sure if you know, but I would assume that this is pretty much all around, right? You can find a lot of places find the similar situation, especially in the desert West.
Absolutely. And I mean, everywhere. There, like you were saying earlier, if there's water there, carp have gotten there. So there's every urban pond probably in America has a couple of them, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of possible everywhere. I mean, I know the guys out there are crushing it in the LA River and things like that. So
there you go.
I've talked to a couple of those guys, and it's cool stuff. It's really cool.
A similar deal, yeah. So the carp, all these years has gotten a bad rap, you know, but now people are realizing that you know how cool it is to fish, how it's almost right like saltwater species. What do you think it is on the bad rap? Why is it just people just were uneducated? Is that kind of what it comes down to?
You know, I think it has something to do with them being or fish being looked at as just food for a long time. It wasn't looked at as fishing wasn't looked at as a sport until fairly recently, like in the grand scheme of things. And I think it had something to do with that. Whether carp actually tastes good or not, that's debatable. I've never personally eaten it. I don't really plan to. I also don't really like freshwater fish at all. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it is. I think some stuff, some bad rap comes from like bass fishing and the whole tournament bass world.
Oh yeah.
And that whole thing. And people just don't know. Like 9 times out of 10, there's a couple of guys that are like, oh, they've gone and caught a carp, and they're like, oh, that was okay. I'm going to go back to fishing trout. That doesn't happen very often.
No, right. So you're saying if somebody has never done carp and they try it and they get a fish, that they're not saying, oh, that was ho hum. It's different than that.
Yeah. It's they work for it. It's, you know, fly fishermen and women are kind of. It's like the challenge is what we look for anyway. That's why we're not throwing bait casters.
That's right. That's right.
So it is a challenge. It's a very challenging fish. I've taken a lot of people out, and just a lot of very, very, very good anglers, and just watch them blank. It's tough.
Wow.
So when you land that first one, it means something. It's cool.
That is cool. And it is interesting because you guys have trout fishing too, and you do a little bit of the trout fishing out in your neck of the woods. Yeah,
absolutely. I do a fair amount of it, enough that I can talk about it in the shop and stuff.
Yeah.
Trout don't excite me very much. Super rare trout do, but that's I don't know. They're cool.
Today's episode is sponsored by Bearvault, keeping wild adventure going and ensuring your next backcountry trip stays memorable, epic, and safe. Bearvault builds a rugged polycarbonate locking canister that keeps bears and other critters out of your food and your stuff. This keeps you safe, keeps the bears safe, and keeps everyone safe. I've had plenty of bear encounters. In fact, on my way home from the trip, I ran into a bear right in the middle of the road. It was actually one of the biggest black bears I've ever seen just driving down the highway. Didn't really need the Bearvault at that situation, but just reminds you that these bears are everywhere. And even hiking for a day hike, whatever it is, if you've got food and you don't want to potentially get messed with, especially if you're in some of these high trafficked areas with bears, national parks, all these places, the Bearvault is pretty much the hard storage container is what you need and is what everybody's going towards now. The hanging up in the tree, if you're on a trail, that's not good enough anymore. So you got to get a Bearvault to keep your stuff secure. Be the guy that has the epic trip, not the guy who has to hike out early because of poor proper food storage. Check out Bearvault right now. That's wetflyswing.com/Bearvault, BEARVAULT, to support this podcast and a great company doing amazing things. Okay, back to the show.
Are there other species out there other than carp that are kind of not the salmonids, but other fish that are in your area there?
Absolutely. I also sucker fish a lot.
Oh, cool.
Especially like the Salt River has a species of sucker fish. It's the Sonora sucker. You can only find them here in the Southwest, and they get really big. 25 inches.
Wow.
And things like that. And they'll show you you're backing not in a hurry too. But they're kind of like less picky carp. They'll eat a little bit more of a wide range of things and stuff like that. And we fish for them when they drop the flows for the winter in the Salt River. And they're a ton of fun.
Nice. And these are I wonder, are these like large scale suckers or well, you said they're the Sonora. It's probably similar to a large scale maybe.
They're kind of like a red horse or something, I guess. They're just they're brown and yellow. They're cool.
Oh wow, nice. Yeah. All right. Well, I think the suckers and are there? We'll probably have to leave some as to another time. But name a few. Are there any other species that you'd highlight here, just as the non-salmonids that are out there?
Yeah. Tilapia are insanely difficult to get to eat flies.
Wow.
We've got, I caught a tiger Oscar cichlid out of the canal the other day. I bass fish a lot too. I like catching largemouth and things. Catfish. I've got a buddy that has been trying to catch a 25-pound plus flathead catfish on a 10 weight for a little while now. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of casting and not a lot of catching.
Yeah, you mean like the same fish or just that size of fish?
Just a 25-pound class.
Yeah, 25-pound class. Yeah.
Yep.
Wow, this is cool. Yeah, so you guys it's obviously a little different, but the cool thing is that you do, for people that want it, there are some trout opportunities. But it sounds like, the diversity of the warm water stuff is kind of in a different way than, say, other parts of the country is where it's at for you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's close, and honestly, carp pull harder than trout do. They just do. They're stronger. So
yeah. How do you, when they pull? Is this a strip set, or how are you getting the hook in their mouth?
I kind of strip set naturally. It's just how I kind of always set, but it's it's kind of like any flats fishing. You kind of get tight and then keep pressure.
Yeah. Well, I feel like we've done a decent job just kind of giving a little intro to this. I did have a couple of more things I wanted to touch base on, but talk about that before we kind of leave some of the carp here. Any other items you want to add to somebody who maybe is kind of new to it?
So carp fishing, just because you're not catching fish does not mean you're doing anything wrong. Sometimes they're just not eating. I tell people this all the time. You could make a perfect cast and have the perfect fly, and that carp's still only going to eat about 30% of the time. So it's a numbers game. Go find fish that will eat.
There you go. So like you said at the start, keep moving and find fish. And remind us again on a fly, if you had a box and you're going to pick a couple of flies for the day, what are the two? Are there any name flies, or is this just all stuff you're creating?
I fish kind of solely with stuff that I tie, but there are some good ones. The Carpalicious is a pretty good fly. Any kind of really like headstand pattern.
Yeah.
I don't go anywhere without black and brown woolly buggers. I think I have them on me right now.
Yeah. Right. So, you love the woolly bugger. Yeah, it's a good pattern for a lot of these species you talked about.
Anything that swims.
Yeah. Is the woolly bugger, is that the number one? Is that the best fly out there?
I think it's the best all-around fly out there for sure. I don't know. Worm hybrid patterns are really, really great for carp, though.
Okay, gotcha.
Absolutely.
What is the so for you? The bear trap. I'm not even sure. Is that like talk about that? I didn't do my research there, but is there any background there?
It's just kind of it's the nickname they gave me when I like kind of came into the shop. There's a abundance of Krises in the shop, so the owner Kris started calling me by my Instagram handle because that's where I kind of started talking to him. First, it was through Instagram, so he just started calling me Bear Trap, and it kind of just stuck.
Oh, and it stuck, yeah. And I caught a video of you too. This might have been early on, but you guys were talking on one of the videos there, and you're kind of talking about. He was mentioning just the passion of you, like your, who you are. Like, talk about that. What is that? Where does that come from? What's your, you've been around fishing for a while, but do you feel like that's fairly unique? How into this you are?
I don't know. I know a lot of guys that are crazy about fly fishing. I know a lot of girls that are crazy about fly fishing. There's just a lot of people that are crazy about this sport. I think it's easy to be like kind of obsessive about it.
Yeah. Why is that over, say, anything else, right? Like pick whatever. Like
I think it's the community. I really, really do. I think it's because of the people that fly fish, and it's a cool group of people to be a part of it. Like everybody's interesting and like it's a cool group of people. I think that's what it is. People feel at home in fly fishing.
Right. When you see people coming into the shop, the old joke was, kind of the old white guy, right? The old whatever. But when you guys at the shop there, do you see a good diversity of people coming in?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's Phoenix in general is a pretty diverse place. So, we've got almost 7 million people in this city. So we see, literally all walks of life, and it's a ton of fun. The crowd out here is getting younger, quickly, very quickly. There's a gap. There's like a gap between like 20-year-olds fishing and 40-year-olds fishing.
Yeah.
It's and I think it's because there wasn't a really like interactive fly shop for a long time out here in the valley. So it created this like gap, and I can see it starting to fill now. I host a fly tying night every Thursday night, and there's always 15 people here, and it's all different. It's awesome.
Oh wow, that is cool. Yeah, so you actually have people coming in the shop, and you're doing in person. But you're still doing some stuff online.
I'm not doing much online. We were gonna cast it and like kind of video it and everything, but it's glorified beer drinking, and we don't like to watch what we say and things like that. We don't think about any of that. So It's kind of like, it's open to anybody. It's free. You can come in and hang out.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love that. The thing about the fly shop is that all fly shop, they're unique. Everybody's different and stuff. But I remember that I grew up around a fly shop, and I remember as I got into like high school, where I was old enough to drink, right, or not even old, I guess, even before, right, but drinking the beverages. We would go in there before our trips, and like late at night, we would just go in there. We'd be in there freaking 2 a.m, tying flies, getting ready for leaving the next day for the trip, and drink, right, doing the whole thing. And it was like that was our party, which is kind of cool to think, right, because there's a lot of like bad stuff you could do to get in trouble as a kid.
Absolutely.
And so I always look back and then be like, you know what, that was pretty cool to have that, right? And what you're describing is a similar, right? It's all different, but a similar deal.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have there's a kid that fishes out here, and I met him I met him at one of the urban ponds, and he fishes for Team USA. He's their youth team.
Oh yeah.
His name's Henry. He's awesome. He's Little Boss 2 Hauler on Instagram.
Okay.
Great kid. And he has he's kind of collaborated this group of like 15-year-old kids, and
Nice.
they go out and carp fish and they slay, and it's awesome. They're cool, and they come in and they're loud, and it's just cool. It's cool to have like them talking about fishing with like some 60-year-old guy.
Right.
It's cool to watch.
Right. That is very cool, man. I love that. That's awesome. So it sounds like the shop, you guys are having a good time in there. And are you seeing the as the shop, it's a year and a half, 2 years, it's fairly new shop, but you're seeing some like good growth, and it's kind of, you're seeing that happen in front of you?
Absolutely. I'm still getting, we still get as many new people today as we did in our 5th month of business.
Wow.
It hasn't really died off. More people are moving to Phoenix every day, and more people are getting excited about fly fishing in general. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
What's your guys' focus? So as you look out, we're mid whatever we're looking out at 23 coming up here in a while. As you guys look out, what do you for the shop? What are you guys going to be? Do you look out at, say, over the next year and think about what you're going to be doing, or are you thinking more not quite that far out?
Yeah. I know we're going to be doing events. One of our favorite things in the world is to raise money for local charities. And we've kind of given the platform for our local community this past year, in our first year. I think we raised almost $30,000 for local charities. The vendors love it too. Like, we're doing a Carp Rally here in 2 weeks. If anybody wants to come out and fish it, come do it. It's to benefit wildlife for tomorrow. It's like Abel gave us a reel to raffle off. Scott gave us a rod. Ross gave us a reel. It's super, super cool. And then we got a bunch of stuff for the winners, and like guide trips and stays at these ranches and all kinds of stuff. Like it's a blast. And 400 or 500 people will show up to some of our events, and it's fun. Amazing. Just watching everybody just packed into this building and laughing and enjoying, like, being around each other.
Yeah.
It's fun.
So this event will be this Carp Rally will be actually at the fly shop?
Yeah, the awards and everything. So it's a 1-day event. People show up here Friday morning. They pick up their landing mat. All photos have to be taken on the landing mat. All that good stuff. Gotta take care of the fish.
Yeah, describe that again. Now, what are you talking about the landing? Describe that a little more.
It's basically a yoga mat that you get wet and you can lay the fish on it, so you're not rolling them in the dirt and things like that. They are SRP's fish, so we want them to go back and keep cleaning the canals, and we get a chance to catch them again. It's basically a yoga mat. It's got like a measuring tape kind of laser etched into it, and our logo and Low Water's logo. It's cool.
Yeah. So that's something. Yeah, a tool you don't hear that much about, but that's for carp or probably any species you want to keep from getting whacked on the concrete or whatever, getting scraped up. That's what you got it for.
Absolutely. There's no real good way to take a picture of a big carp. So.
No. Yeah. How do you do that? That's a good, and I want to finish up this thought too, but this, popped in my head as far as the landing them, right? So you're playing a fish for a while and you're in a canal too. So how do you, what's the trick there on landing the fish? So
every about 70 to 80 yards, there is a ladder that goes down the wall of the canal, and you walk it to one of those ladders and climb down the ladder and stand on the bottom rung of the ladder, try not to fall in, and try to net the fish. And most of the fish we catch, we just don't take pictures of because it's just too difficult.
Too much. Right. Yeah. Right. So this canal, and I'd imagine this canal is a little dangerous if you were to fall in.
It's not very deep. It's disgusting. It is. It's gross.
It's gross.
Yeah. Yeah, the water's pretty bad.
And the water's bad because it's I'm trying to picture this again, right? It's a canal that's used for drinking water, right? I'm assuming.
It is. I think it's mostly irrigation water.
Yeah. Right. So you've got all sorts. So you got all sorts of stuff going on in there.
Oh yeah, I mean, it runs through one of the largest cities in America.
Yeah,
So
yeah, right. Yep. So it's
it's
everything.
kind of rough. So,
Yeah, there you go. So you definitely, like you said, maybe if you're homeless, you don't care, but yeah, you're not eating. You definitely wouldn't want to eat these things anyways.
yeah, no.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay, so back to the yoga mat. So in talking about this event, I just want to hear quickly about this event, and then we'll kind of take it out of here. So how did you come up? So this idea of the event, it sounds like a pretty massive thing you got going. To describe it a little more. So you guys are you're getting some money going on for some local charity, some local groups.
Yep,
and then you're giving away a bunch of products through the brands, the big brands that are there. And what's that look like the day of the event?
We'll get here early. We'll start setting up and everything. We'll have a barbecue. We do a lot to support Casting for Recovery as well. And they'll come out and they'll set up they love hanging out with us. So they'll come out, they'll set up a barbecue, take donations and all that stuff for them. We'll do kind of swag giveaways all day, kind of just like, calling people's names out, and people just kind of come hang out. We usually have some games for kids. We do cornhole and things like that. It's just kind of like a hangout and a good time for people to meet other people. And we'll put a couple things on sale and just hang out and then give away.
And then you give away, and then you kind of raffle off like the rod and stuff, or the people kind of raffling that off, that sort of thing.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. Draw tickets and give some rods away.
Nice. Okay, so that's it. That sounds cool. And so you guys are going to be looking ahead now. The next, say, whatever next year, you're going to be doing some more of that type of stuff.
Absolutely, we do a spring fling. We're going to do a spring fling every year, and any event that we do, we use it as an excuse to raise money for charity. Any of them, there's always some charitable organization tied to them. It's kind of just what we like to do. So,
nice.
But we do a spring fling. We call it Winston Days. So our Winston rep comes out, and we have like a Saturday of throwing all kinds of Winston rods and the history and stuff behind that. We'll do probably a couple other things. We're kind of on the fly.
Yeah, it's great.
Unintended.
Yeah. That's it. You're trying stuff, right? You're seeing, because not all of it's going to work perfectly, but you'll probably find some events that maybe resonate more with people, right, than others.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, I think I feel like we've definitely touched on it here today. I think that it's given people an intro, to it, and it sounds like it's pretty awesome. I mean, the Phoenix is I always think of it, like, wow, it's this crazy hot place, which it is. But it also, you've painted a picture of a really cool, like, a lot of resources out there, like in the city, which I'll bet you a lot of people don't realize, right?
Absolutely. I get asked all the time. One thing that gets said to me a lot. People see me fly fishing the canal, and they're like, "Oh, you're fly fishing." I'm like, "Yeah," and they're like, "There's no trout in here."
Yeah, no trout. It's right. yeah, we're past that. I think the trout. I think, again, going back to that diversity, I think it ties in maybe to the younger stuff too. Is that the old trout fishing? It's like the old white guy. It's like we're past that. Fly fishing's about, like, I think the more diverse the fishing, the more diverse the people, right? All that stuff. It's like we're in a better place.
Absolutely. It's it pushed the sport, like, just kind of what it is. It breeds innovation. Yeah.
And you guys are in one of those really unique places, that has, like you described today, and some of this other cool stuff. So, well, we'll send everybody out today to the azflyshop.com. I did want to touch one thing, and this is kind of actually a little bit of I don't want to leave it on a sad note, but you mentioned the homeless thing, and that is a little bit of an issue around, the country in different cities. I mean, do you guys see, like, you're out there fishing, that's something that's just part of the cityscape, right? You're seeing that kind of everywhere. Is it feel like to you it's a major problem?
Absolutely. And one of the number one causes of homelessness here in Arizona is actually kids aging out of foster care.
Oh, wow.
Which is extremely sad. It takes a sad,
that.
And it makes it even worse. We we donate a lot of money every year to the Homeless ID Project, and it just helps. It helps the homeless get an identification so they can do things like get a place to live and get a job and things like that.
Wow.
And it's an organization that's really special to us. Just because we see it. I'm out there fishing these canals and I see it every single day. So it's if you've got a homeless ID project in your city, it's a great organization. So
I'm glad we talked about that, because we have a major issue here too, and I'm definitely I'll look into that. That'd be a cool group. It sounds like, if they're out there to support. Nice. Well, yeah, that's good. I think that's actually a positive note that you guys are, you're doing, and it sounds like you're doing a lot of good work in the community, which is great to hear. Well, we'll send, whoever is listening here, azflyshop.com, we'll send them, like I said, out there to connect with you, and remind me who's running the show at the shop there.
I'm managing the shop. Guy named Chris Rich he owns it with a partner, and he's a very involved person. He's the other guy in all the videos and stuff.
Oh yeah, that's him. Yeah. That's Chris. That's the other Chris.
That guy. So
yeah. He's pretty passionate too. I can tell.
Absolutely. He's a blast to fish with too.
Good.
Yep.
All right, Chris. Well, thanks again for all the time today. I definitely love, where our conversation went, and I think we're gonna have to get a follow up with you guys, because I think there's some more we could dig into, maybe on some other species down the line. So yeah, thanks for all the time today.
Absolutely. Come out and fish.
So there it is, wetflyswing.com/371. If you want to check out anything we talked about today, including videos, links, that's the easy way. Just click over there and that'll redirect you over to the blog. You can get that along with our transcript. Quick reminder, I want to let you know we just wrapped up the Steelhead School, and we filled all the slots for not only wrapping up the giveaway, but the paid slots this year. If you're still interested, though, we're probably most likely doing this next year. You can head over to wetflyswing.com/Steelhead School, and that'll give you a chance. You can just add your name, and we'll keep you in the loop for next year. Our listener shout-out is a special one. Nick Torres, my brother from another mother at Lamps, and Nick and I recently got out with FishHound expeditions up to that Alaska trip. I mentioned it earlier, but it was pretty much about as good as it gets. Caught some big fish, caught some salmon, just had a good time on the river. And Nick has some good stuff going. They have a new line of rods out with Lamson. Check them out right now if you want to see what they have. Not only do they have the lightest reel in the game, but they got some killer rods to go with it. And let Nick know you heard about him from this podcast. I'm going to put a link out, wetflyswing.com/Lamson. Would love to hear from you if you get a chance. If you've been listening to this show and haven't checked in with me yet, you can send me an email, dave@wetflyswing.com, or just ping me on social. I would love to hear that you are enjoying these episodes and what we are putting out is resonating with you. Okay, time to get out of here. Time to get off to the next one. I am heading out onto the river and going to chase some steelhead. I'm going to compare those steelhead to the rainbow. When we were doing this trip up in Alaska, one of the things that was the take-home message for me was how much these rainbows, not only were they huge, but how much they reminded me of steelhead. I mean, they hammered it, they went crazy, they did cartwheels, they jumped, and then when you tried to release them, it was hard to hold these things because they're so spunky. So if you want a super strong fish, again, just a reminder, this is, it pretty much blew me away. Very similar to steelhead. And I am going for steelhead this week. So hopefully I get a shot. Hopefully I can curate, get my spay game a little up to speed. And yeah, that's it. So if you get a chance with this Alaska giveaway, we've been talking a lot about it, but we're just launching that here soon. So that's your best chance. I would love to get with you on the water on a trip like that. If I can't, check with me online, and I hope you are having a good afternoon, good evening, or good morning, wherever in the world you are right now. Talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Wet Fly Swing Fly Fishing Show. For notes and links from this episode, visit wetflyswing.com.